Hello, beautiful soul. Welcome back to Everything Within podcast. I'm your host, Alina Krasnožon. This podcast is all about empowering you to build an extraordinary, fulfilling life and tap into the limitless potential that resides within you. Thank you for tuning in today. What if I told you that the version of yourself you're trying to become already exists in this messy, imperfect person you are right now? What if your journey, this exact moment, with all its flaws and uncertainties, is the goal? Not some distant destination where you will finally have it all figured out. You're here on this earth to experience life in its fullness, to live this human experience completely. What if that was your only job in this life? I know how hard this can be to accept. We want to heal overnight, to become our highest self. But what if your highest self is you, right here, right now? It's your brain trying to find comfort in this idea of becoming better, because accepting where you are feels too vulnerable, too uncertain. I know how hard it is to sit with where you are, especially when it's not perfect and when it's not exactly where you want to be. And when you're in the middle of becoming, it's easy to feel stuck, like nothing is changing day to day, when you haven't built those good habits yet, when you can't seem to force yourself to stick to them, when you don't have the body you want, when you're not the expert you dream of being, when you haven't earned the money or found the relationship you hope will finally make you whole. But it's precisely this hoping that some external thing will give you everything you want, will make you feel the way you want to feel. This adds misery to your life. You're giving your power away to things outside yourself. The truth, you're already whole, and you can learn to generate emotions you want to feel right now. You don't need anything outside yourself to be happy. It's easy to feel great when everything going perfectly. But what happens when self-doubt creeps in, when you have to deal with difficult situations and people? Do you believe you have what it takes to handle it all? Today we're talking about why this messy middle, this space between who you were and who you are becoming, is where you actually live your life. Not something to rush through to get to the good part. Why your power isn't in some future version of yourself, but in this moment, right here, right now. Let's begin. It feels incredibly hard to be okay with where you are right now while you're still building your life. Your mind wants certainty, wants to know you're headed somewhere good, and sitting in the unknown of becoming feels terrifying. But this tension between where you are and where you want to be is just part of the process. We all created versions of ourselves, masks, personas, ways of being, to survive whatever we went through. Maybe you learned to be invisible to avoid conflict, or become a perfectionist to earn love, or build walls to protect yourself from disappointment. Back then, these patterns served you. They helped you survive, and they were the only way you knew how to navigate the world. But ask yourself now, are you still living in survival mode? Are you still carrying that mask and operating from that version of yourself? How would it feel to let it go? You already survived. Maybe it's time to live now, to thank those parts of yourself, genuinely thank them for keeping you safe, and then let go of the anger, resentment, and trauma. Because continue to live as that version of yourself prevents you from moving forward and building the life you actually want. Most people spend their entire lives living in past survival mode, completely unconsciously. It's incredibly hard to become aware of these parts of yourself, and to be brutally honest that living like this isn't taking you where you want to go. But awareness is the first step to freedom. It can be genuinely painful to let this version of yourself go, especially if you've lived like this your entire life. Without these familiar patterns, you might not know who you are anymore. But underneath those layers of survival, conditioning, and unconscious patterns you've adopted, there is something better waiting. You might discover who you really are, your authentic self and her desires. You might realize that you're worthy just as you are, that you deserve to live life on your own terms, to ask for more, to receive everything you want. But for this to happen, you have to free up space. If you're still operating from your old survival state, you're probably not seeing new possibilities, or you're too afraid to look for them. Your old programming keeps you small and safe, but it also keeps you stuck. Living in survival mode and thriving aren't the same thing. Survival mode is reactive. You're constantly putting out fires, protecting yourself, operating from fear and scarcity. You're focused on avoiding pain rather than creating joy. Every decision comes from what's safe instead of what do I actually want. Thriving, on the other hand, is responsive. You're creating, expanding, making choices from possibility rather than fear. You're not just avoiding what you don't want, you're actively moving toward what you do want. I'm still letting go of my own survival mode, but I can feel the inner shift happening. The more inner work I do, the more liberating it feels. It feels so good no longer be controlled by your fears, unhelpful thoughts, and old programming. You feel so much more powerful and capable. You learn to use your body and mind as tools instead of being controlled by them. And here is the beautiful part. You can feel happy while becoming. You don't have to wait until you're fixed to enjoy your life, because your life is happening right here, right now, not in some distant future where you will finally have everything you want. Old patterns and programming will continue to creep in when you do this work. It's inevitable. Change doesn't happen overnight, but the more aware you become of them, the less power they have over you. The more you learn to recognize and process your unhelpful thoughts and emotions, to sit with the difficult emotions instead of avoiding them, the stronger you become. When you remove the thought from a difficult feeling, you will find that it's just a sensation in your body. Sit with it long enough until it passes, or you can learn that you can live with it forever. Here is how to recognize when you're still operating from your old programming. You feel reactive instead of responsive. You're making decisions from fear instead of desire. You're people-pleasing, over-explaining, or shrinking yourself. You feel that familiar tightness in your chest and that voice telling you that you're not good enough. When you catch yourself in these moments, pause, take a breath, ask yourself, is this my survival self talking, or is this who I'm becoming? Then choose differently. Act as the person you want to become. With time and practice, this becomes easier. You stop being so reactive and triggered. The old patterns will always be there, but you get to choose whether you follow them or not. We all have the inner voice inside of ourselves. But have you ever stopped and actually noticed what it tells you? How do you talk to yourself daily? The inner voice is born very early in our childhood. And if you were constantly forced to fit in, to perform, to look a certain way, to achieve things, to be loved and accepted, it becomes your default inner voice. You become a perfectionist, constantly telling yourself that you're not good enough, that you don't have what it takes, that you need to do more, to be more, that resting is a waste of time, or you feel guilty when you rest because it's not productive. For the biggest part of my life, I wasn't aware of my inner voice. It was just a part of me, and it kept sabotaging my efforts to create a different life, a life I loved living. I was taught to be a good girl, a good student, a perfect human being. I learned to people please, to be accepted. I felt like a burden to my family because we never had enough money for anything, which wasn't my fault. But nobody in my family could explain that to me because they were all trying to survive as well. It's not easy to live with emotionally immature parents. I was forced to grow up very fast, to manage my parents' emotions, because they didn't know how to do it for themselves. I was constantly in the middle of family dramas and was given responsibilities that I was never meant to handle as a child. So I became a perfectionist, always searching for safety, criticizing myself constantly for not doing enough, feeling guilty for resting, pushing myself too harshly all the time. I had to learn to parent myself, to nurture, to love, and accept the parts of myself I created to survive, then let them go and adopt a new way of talking to myself. The messy middle is the hardest place to be because you're not quite where you want to be, but not where you once were either. Self-doubt is incredibly strong here because your mind wants to keep you safe, and new things, even good things, feel scary and unknown. The stories become, maybe I'm fooling myself, maybe I'm not capable of change. Everyone else seems to have it all figured out. I should be further along by now. What if I'm wasting my time? Maybe I'm not just a type of person who gets what she wants. Your mind will throw every doubt at you to get you to go back to what's familiar, even if what's familiar wasn't working. This is a powerful shift. Just think about it, where you were 5 years ago, and you will be amazed at how far you've actually come. The problem is we are so focused on the gap between where we are and where we want to be that we forget to acknowledge the gap between where we were and where we are now. Try to reframe stories you tell to yourself. Instead of, I'm not there yet, try, I'm exactly what I need to be to learn what I need to learn. Instead of, I'm so behind, try, I'm on my own timeline. Instead of, I don't know what I'm doing, try, I'm learning as I go. And that's exactly how it's supposed to work. This isn't about lying to yourself or toxic positivity. It's about telling yourself a more complete truth. You're still operating from your old programming every time you use a word should. Start noticing when you use the word should. I should be further along. I should have this figured out. I should be more disciplined. Every time you catch yourself using should, pause and ask, says who? Then replace it with something kinder. I'm learning, I'm growing, I'm doing my best with what I have right now. Big change happens one tiny shift at a time. You don't have to rebuild your entire inner dialogue overnight. Just start with one pattern, one word, one story. Change how you talk to yourself about one thing and watch how it ripples into everything else. The voice that criticizes you is the same voice that can encourage you. You just have to teach it a new language. Once I heal, I will feel great and my life will be amazing. How many times have you said something like that to yourself? It's so easy to get stuck in processing all trauma and negativity in your life. Just keep going without a stop. But when it's enough, when you will finally be healed enough, it can become a very elaborate mental masturbation, making you relive old stories and traumas over and over again without finding a way out. You have to combine healing with actually adopting new habits, new ways to talk to yourself. You can choose on changing and improving just one thing, one area of your life weekly. But you need to eventually focus on what you want instead of always focusing on what happened to you and what you don't want. Because if you only focus on negativity all the time, it's what you will eventually attract in your life. It will be reflected back to you, all your inner world and your inner patterns. One thing I've learned being on this path is that healing never ends. It comes in waves. Sometimes old traumas come back so violently and it feels as fresh as if they happened just now, not 20 years ago. I think your trauma will always be there and will always be a part of who you are. But practices like meditation, journaling, breath work help me daily to stay present, grounded, to keep letting go of old wounds without being so caught up in them. Not to react, to let it all go, to process my difficult emotions, sit with them long enough until they pass, but not avoid or distract myself. It's work you need to do daily, intentionally. Keep your practices even if you feel like nothing is happening. Consistency is what matters. The way you show up daily for yourself is what matters. You don't get stuck in healing. It's not the end destination. It's just the beginning of actually living. You can heal and live at the same time. You don't need to drown in your trauma, feel sorry for yourself and what happened to you all the time. It was nobody's fault, and the sooner you realize that, the more power you will start having over the way you live your life. Healing is about processing and releasing. Living is about creating and experiencing. Healing looks backward to understand. Living looks forward to build. You can do both simultaneously. You can work through your stuff while also falling in love, building a career, traveling, laughing, trying new things. Your healing doesn't have to consume your entire existence. Some people get so comfortable in their healing identity that they forget they're allowed to move beyond it. They wear their trauma like a badge, and while your experiences are valid and important, you're not your trauma. You are a full human being with desires, dreams, and the capacity for joy, even while you're still working through your stuff. You will never arrive at being your perfect self. Life is messy, unpredictable, but you can cultivate qualities and skills to navigate all of this with more certainty, with belief in yourself, with confidence. Your healed self still has bad days. Your healed self still gets triggered sometimes. Your healed self still makes mistakes, says the wrong thing, feels insecure, gets overwhelmed. The difference is that your healed self doesn't make these moments mean everything about you. You learn to hold space for your humanity while still believing in your growth. Healing doesn't make you bulletproof. It makes you more resilient. It doesn't eliminate difficult emotions. It teaches you how to be with them. It doesn't make life perfect. It makes you more capable of handling life's imperfections. You don't need to perform your healing. You don't need to prove how much you've suffered or create a show for social media for your growth to matter. The deepest work is happening in quiet, ordinary moments of showing up for yourself. When there is nobody to clap for you, to support you, to cheer you up, you don't need an audience. Your healing doesn't need to be inspirational to others. It doesn't need to be documented or shared. It doesn't need to look like anyone else's journey. Some of the most profound shifts happen in silence, in the moment you choose a different thought, set a boundary, or simply breathe through difficult emotions instead of running from it. Stop making your growth a performance for others and start letting it serve you. Your healing is for you, not for your Instagram feed. Your growth is for your life, not for applause. When you're in the middle of the process of becoming, you don't always notice the slightest shifts in your identity and your behavior, but it's happening with every uncomfortable action you take, with every time you set a boundary when it's hard, with every time you choose to show up for yourself, with every time you dare to show up unapologetically and take space, with every time you follow your curiosity instead of your fear, every time you choose to believe in yourself when self-doubt creeps in, every time you become aware of your old programming and triggers and choose to act differently instead of just reacting, every time you speak your truth, even when your voice shakes, every time you choose rest without guilt, every time you say no without over-explaining, every time you choose yourself, even when it disappoints others, every time you feel the fear and do it anyway, every time you choose love over fear, expansion over safety, growth over comfort, there will always be ups and downs in this journey, and that's what makes it beautiful and worth living. Progress isn't a straight line, it's a spiral. You will revisit the same lessons at deeper level. You will think you've moved past something only to meet it again. It's not failure, that's how growth actually works. The valleys makes the peaks meaningful. The setbacks makes the breakthroughs sweeter. Stop right now and thank yourself for how far you've come, for everything you've overcome when you thought it was impossible. There is such a beauty in the unfinished and imperfect parts of yourself because they're proof of your transformation. For transformation to happen, you need to have something to be transformed. Every experience, even the negative ones, can be transformed. Your pain, your struggles, your mistakes, your failures, they're not just things happened to you. They're the raw material of your becoming. Without them, there would be nothing to alchemize, nothing to turn into wisdom, strength, and compassion. Maybe you finally started going to the gym after years of avoiding it and struggling. Maybe you started the creative project you've been putting away for months. Maybe you accomplished that scary goal for which you didn't have all the skills yet. Maybe you started showing up and expressing yourself authentically on social media after years of stopping and starting. Maybe you started journaling for just 5 minutes daily. Maybe you had the difficult conversation you've been avoiding. Maybe you applied for that job, started that business, moved to that city, ended that relationship that wasn't serving you. These unfinished parts of yourself, the massive first attempts, the imperfect efforts, the scared but brave actions, they're not evidence that you're not good enough. They're evidence that you're becoming. They're proof that you're willing to be bad at something new, to look foolish, but to try anyway. That takes incredible courage. The small invisible shifts are what create huge transformations without you even noticing. It's choosing a different thought pattern for just one moment. It's pausing before reacting. It's speaking to yourself with 1% more kindness. It's choosing the salad, not because you have to, but because you want to nourish yourself. It's texting back when you usually would disappear. It's asking for help instead of struggling alone. These tiny shifts accumulate. They compound. They rewire your nervous system, change your neural pathways, shift your identity one micro choice at a time. The person you're becoming isn't created in grand gestures. She's created in ordinary moments when no one is watching, when you choose differently than you did yesterday. Be proud of the shifts that no one else can see. Be proud of the internal work. Be proud of the battles you fight in your own mind and win. Celebrate your life here and now. Even if you're not where you want to be, it's worth celebrating because you're showing up, you're trying, you're willing to be uncomfortable for the sake of growth. You're reading books, listening to podcasts, doing the inner work, having the difficult conversations, making the changes. Celebrate because you're here, doing the hard thing of becoming conscious, of choosing growth over comfort. Most people never even start this journey because most people accept their programming and live unconsciously their entire lives. But not you. You're questioning, growing, evolving. Celebrate your courage to be imperfect, to try things you might fail at, to love yourself in the process. Celebrate your willingness to feel your feelings instead of numbing them. Celebrate your decisions to heal instead of staying wounded. Celebrate your choice to become instead of just surviving. Your becoming, this messy, imperfect, courageous process, is worthy of celebration, not when you arrive somewhere, but right now, exactly as you are. You can compare yourself only to yourself, to the person you were 5 or 10 years ago, not to somebody else. When you're constantly looking at other people's highlight reels, their finished products, their victories, you're stealing your attention from your own journey. You're not present with your own growth, your own timeline, your own unique path. Comparison makes you forget that everyone is fighting battles you know nothing about. That person who seems to have it all figured out, they have their own struggles, their own timeline, their own lessons to learn. You're seeing their chapter 20 while you live in your chapter 5. And that's not a fair comparison. When you compare, you're essentially saying my journey should look like theirs, but your journey is supposed to look like yours. You have different starting points, different resources, different challenges, different gifts. The only person you should be comparing yourself to is who you were yesterday, last month, last year. That's the only comparison that actually matters and the only one that actually motivates you instead of paralyze you. It takes incredible courage to be ordinary while becoming extraordinary, to look cringy, fail in public, start something new without skills, and learn along the way. Most people aren't ready to do that. Most people would rather stay small and comfortable than risk looking foolish. But extraordinary people are willing to be beginners. They're willing to suck at something new. They're willing to post that imperfect video, write that massive first draft, have that awkward conversation, take that class where they're the worst student, start that business without knowing everything. The courage to be ordinary means you're willing to be seen in your becoming, not just in your arriving. You're willing to let people see you try, fail, get back up, and try again. You're willing to be human, where you'll become superhuman. You're willing to be imperfect in public, to learn out loud, to grow in front of others. That's what actually creates extraordinary results. Because while everyone else is waiting to be ready, you're busy becoming ready through action. So here you are, in the messy middle of your own becoming, not where you once were, not yet where you're going, but exactly where life is actually happening. You don't need permission to love yourself here. You don't need to earn your worth through achievement or wait until you're healed to start living. You don't need to apologize for taking up space while you figure it all out. The person you're becoming isn't some distant future version of yourself that you will meet when you will finally have it all together. She's here in every choice you make to show up differently. She's in every moment you choose courage over comfort, truth over performance, presence over perfection. Your life isn't a dress rehearsal for when you will get it right. This is it. This messy, imperfect, beautiful process of becoming, this is your life. And it's worthy of your love, your celebration, and your full presence right now. So stop waiting for someday. Stop apologizing for not being further along. Start comparing your inside to everyone else's outside. Trust your timeline. Trust your process. Trust that your becoming is exactly who you're meant to be. The messy middle isn't where you're stuck, it's where you're alive, and that's everything. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. Until the next time, bye!